Welcome to Streaming with Two Dudes, a podcast about all things streaming. Each episode, we break down some of the best series, songs, movies, and shows. I'm one dude, Parker.
I'm two dude Jeff.
And dudes, this month our theme is time manipulation. And this episode, we're talking about time. But first, Jeff, what else have you been streaming?
All right, so recently I did check out a movie called, not sure if you've heard of this one. It's called Redeeming Love.
Definitely not.
I know that surprises you that I watched a movie called that.
Total shocker.
It's actually a pretty good movie. It's kind of focuses on, I won't say it focuses on, but it's definitely kind of centered around sex trafficking.
Okay,
but
that was not what I was expecting.
That's why I said it doesn't focus on it, but it's because the movie actually takes place in like the mid to late 1800s. Okay. So it's not like it's about the problem with sex trafficking as we know it today, but it's just about a woman who comes out of that life. Back then it wouldn't have been called sex trafficking. She was basically used as a organized prostitute in a hostel house type deal. But her trying to come out of that life and accept love from a man the way it was originally intended, and her just fighting with her past and what she views herself as compared to what this gentleman sees her as. So it's actually a pretty good movie. I would recommend it. I'm not sure if you would like it because it's definitely highly romantical.
Yeah.
Which I know isn't completely your thing.
I'm not even sure that's completely a word.
Hey, I like to make up words like terrifical, fantastical, romantical. There you go. You heard it here first.
All right.
But yeah, I recommend it for people that are into romance movies. But it's not one of those. It's not like a cheesy Hallmark movie or anything or at least I didn't view it as that because it didn't follow the Hallmark formula per se.
Yeah.
And like I said, it does really kind of focus on that portion of her life, which isn't very Hallmarky. Another word. There you go. I'm just making a word. Stay tuned for a third one.
Just making up your own adjectives and adverbs up in this piece.
That's right. So how about you? What odd or unusual thing?
Actually, this is something that's going to be completely on topic for even this theme. I actually kind of was just like flipping through HBO Max and I was like looking for something to watch and I was like, hey, The Butterfly Effect, not even thinking about our theme or anything like that. And so I put that on and I was like halfway through it, I'm like, hey, this fits the theme perfectly for like what we're watching like this month. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And it's actually kind of crazy because the premise of the two movies is basically like the same almost, where you can like travel back in time in your life and change it. And it also kind of has, a little bit of like a romantic theme, like, based around like love and trying to manipulate that. So yeah, it's actually like really, I was like, wow, this is actually quite on topic for the week and very comparable actually to the movie that we watched.
Did it have Ashton Kutcher in it?
Yeah, Ashton Kutcher. Yeah, it had Ashton Kutcher.
Okay.
And I think Ali Larder is her name.
Okay. Actually, the movie I told you I watched earlier tonight had Ashton in it.
Oh, really?
So I'll throw that one out there next week.
All right. But yeah, it's pretty much. I mean, for those of y'all that haven't seen it, it's about this guy who can read his journal entries from the past when he was having like blackouts throughout his life. He would read the journal entries surrounding those, and he could travel back in time and those periods of his life, and change things surrounding those events. So, and they were usually doing during traumatic events of his life. So, but yeah, it's kind of a very similar theme to this one, just a little bit darker for sure. But yeah, Butterfly Effect. Love that movie. It was one of my favorites. I've seen that movie a bajillion times.
Actually, that term in that movie came to mind while watching this movie about time. So yeah. Totally get what you're going there.
Yeah. Jeff, actually, so this is like the first time I've actually seen the movie About Time. I'd never seen it before. I actually really like Rachel McAdams, but I'm not really like a huge fan of like the romantical movies. I actually do like The Notebook. So I am a fan of that one, and that was, you know, probably my introduction to Rachel McAdams. It was either that or Mean Girls, 100%. Like, but both of those movies I loved her in, and we get two very different versions of her in those movies. And anytime she's ever in something, I always enjoy her. Definitely a huge like on-screen like crush, lover. One of the best smiles in Hollywood.
Oh
But
yeah, she's great.
yeah, and her laughs are always adorable. Um, but yeah, what can you tell me about this film?
All right, well, I'll go ahead and just start it with Rachel McAdams since she kind of threw it out there for us. But yeah, she's pretty well known. We kind of talked about her some last week. I mean, she was like the it girl there for a while. She was like
Mhm.
supposed to be the next Julia Roberts type deal, and then, but yeah, as you mentioned, Mean Girls is kind of what put her on the map. Interestingly enough, she did not actually audition for the role of Regina. She auditioned for one of the other parts, and Regina was the one she got. So, which obviously, helped her out
Yeah.
pretty good. Um, and and of course, anytime you're doing this kind of research, you see how a lot of the actors and actresses in Hollywood, how their stories kind of intertwine.
Mhm.
It's just really cool to read some of it. But Rachel actually auditioned for the role of Sophie for Mamma Mia,
Huh.
but lost out to Amanda. How you say it? Seyfried? Seyfried?
Safe
Seyfried?
read, safe read, yeah.
I'm horrible with pronouncing these Hollywood names, but which I love her too. She is awesome. But Amanda actually lost out to Rachel for the role of Regina in Mean
Huh.
Girls. So you see
Nice.
that a lot where they kind of lose out to one another in different types of movies.
Yeah.
Right after Mean Girls, the really big one, as you mentioned, that really probably put her on her way to stardom was the movie Notebook with Ryan Gosling.
Mhm.
I know how to say his name, oddly enough. Um, Interesting fact, her and Ryan were actually born in the exact same hospital.
Huh.
They're both Canadian, so they were both born in the same hospital in Canada. From there, she did movies like Wedding Crashers, Sherlock Holmes, many others. She did kind of take a little hiatus not long after she really hit it big for about 2 3 years, and she kind of made the comment that she just got to a point in life where she just felt like she was hearing too many voices in her head, not like from a mental problem necessarily, but just she said, I never wanted to be a big movie star. I never
Mm.
even pictured myself getting out of Canada or getting out of theater.
Huh.
So she said I had to get back to the point where I was hearing my own voice again. So
Yeah.
kudos to her. She, at a young age took mental health, as a high priority. So she took a break, stepped away from Hollywood for a couple of years, jumped right back in. We kind of mentioned last year, or not last year, last week. Wow. It's that whole time loop thing, man. It's like it's got me all confused. I jumped back a couple of years. Uh, that we haven't heard much from her lately in the
Yeah.
last few years. And while she hasn't necessarily been on a break, she has seems to slow down quite a bit. But I didn't read a direct reason why, but my guess is she has had two kids in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So she's been starting a family. So obviously that's going to take priority. So I would imagine that played a big role in to why she's kind of stepped back, in the last few years. But she's still awesome. We love her. And she was the only person in this movie. And again, I'm going to butcher these names, I'm sure, but Domhnall Gleeson, who played Tim. Rachel obviously played Mary. Gleason's been in, I don't know if you've seen any of the Peter Rabbit movies. I haven't,
Mhm. Yeah, I
but
have. I've actually seen
um,
those. They're pretty good.
he's actually been in a number of Star Wars movies and projects.
Hmm.
He was in Goodbye Christopher Robin, and he played Bill Weasley in Harry Potter.
Yep.
And there's actually some they snuck in some little references there as far as Harry Potter and even some movies his dad did. His dad was also an actor. couple of others. I actually did not realize that Margot Robbie was in this movie.
Yeah,
So,
I noticed. Well, I mean, I've never seen this, but yeah, when she popped up, I was like, oh my god! I was like, I wonder if this was like one of her first things that she was in.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't the first thing, but she definitely hadn't hit it big yet.
Yeah,
So I'm not sure how much this particular movie kind of helped. But yeah, even when I picked the movie, I didn't realize she was in it. So, but yeah, she played Charlotte. Again, I'm going to mess up names. The guy that played Tim's dad's that Bill Nighy. Nighy.
yeah. Hey, there you go. Yeah,
All
that's right. Yeah, good
right.
job, man. I'm proud of
Uh,
you.
Look at me. But yeah, he's
Yeah,
great. He's been in a ton of stuff. I won't go on all his stuff, but I've always enjoyed stuff I've seen him in.
yeah. I always think
Ri-
of Love Actually and his character whenever I think
yeah,
because I mean that's one of I guess the most I guess American popular roles that are for like American audiences probably.
more than likely. Richard Curtis is the director and writer. So this film cast actually included 5 Oscar nominees. You want to take a stab?
I mean,
You can probably get 3 right off the bat,
Bill
but
Nye probably.
yep, yep, he's one.
Um, I'm trying to think of who all was even in this. Probably the guy that played Tim Gleason was
Actually, he's not.
no Rachel McAdams,
Yep,
for sure. And then
you'll only get one more,
the
and
guy the guy that played Uncle I can't think of his name. The uncle, the guy that played the uncle.
if his name is Richard E. Grant, I don't know who played the uncle, but he is one of the 5. Margot Robbie.
Yeah. Oh, I
If
didn't even think about Margot Robbie.
she's been nominated for an
We were
Oscar,
just talking
and
about her.
Vanessa Kirby. I'm not sure who she played in this movie, but could have been minor roles.
Yeah.
But Margot Robbie and Mr. Gleason have actually worked together in 3 films. This film, Goodbye Christopher Robin, and Peter Rabbit. And oddly
Okay.
enough, we'd mentioned last week, it's like, didn't Rachel do another like time travel type movie?
Yeah.
She's actually done 4.
What?
And she was the love interest in all 4. She did this
Okay.
movie about time, and she
Uh-huh.
was time traveler's wife, which we had mentioned.
Yeah.
She was also in one called Midnight in Paris, and then another one which I haven't watched it. You may have, but where you're definitely familiar with the movie Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah.
She was in that one, so that deals with kind of time manipulation.
I didn't even think of that one. I don't think yeah. But yeah, of course.
So yeah, just crazy that she's done 4 though. She must like that whole. Maybe she'll listen to our podcast.
Maybe she'll check it out.
I mean, how many podcasts are devoting a month to time travel and manipulation? But
Yeah.
uh, obviously, the film was set in England. Despite that, none of the main actors are from England. You've got Gleason, who is Irish, Rachel McAdams is Canadian, and Margot Robbie is what? What is she?
Australian?
Australian. Uh, you ever notice how? I mean, there's a ton of A-listers from Australia, and you wouldn't know it until you see an interview with them.
Yeah.
They do really well at hiding their accent, and I guess most of the roles they get, they're not supposed to sound Australian.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I don't know if we have any Australian listeners, but I think it's like, I mean, they probably have like, I think, I don't know. I feel like the reason that maybe a lot of other countries can do like American accents a little bit better is because a lot of our a lot of our entertainment is out in the world, if that makes sense.
yeah,
So but I mean, I don't know, maybe, but I mean, yeah, you're right, they definitely do, and there's plenty of not even just Australia, and where I'm just like, I would have never known that that guy was Irish. I would have never known that that guy was British, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it's crazy.
yep. All right, so a couple of the things I'll probably bring up like while you're talking about the movie, but there's a couple more I will throw out there because I'm sure it won't come up in the recap. But
Yeah, because this recap, I mean, not to get ahead of the schedule, but it's gonna be a pretty wonky. I don't know. These time manipulation movies are really hard to go
yeah,
over like everything because it's like you can only go into detail so much without like having to go into the whole entire film.
Yeah,
But
so towards the end of the film where you had young Tim, um, I'm assuming it's talking about the scene where he's on the beach with his dad,
mhm,
kind of like their last time together.
yeah.
The boy was actually Richard Curtis's son, the director of the film. That was his little boy playing that role. Richard Griffith, I don't know what role he played. I probably should have looked that up, but this was his last movie.
Mm,
So obviously he must have passed on after this movie. Towards the end of the film, Rory is reading the book Trash, which was actually Richard Curtis's next film. Curtis
hmm,
wrote the screenplay for both Trash and About Time. So always see directors kind of sneak in a little something there like that.
that's cool.
All right, let's see if there's anything that I want to point out now. I think everything else I'm going to wait while you're doing your recap.
All
Wait,
right. Well,
I do have one more just because it's funny how when we do these, there's like little connections to previous movies we've covered on our podcast.
yeah.
And that was never the intention, but there was a
It's
frame
inevitable.
exactly. It's kind of like the whole Kevin Bacon thing. This is kind of what it reminded me of, but the framed illustration seen in Mary's apartment of a little girl reading is Matilda. So
That's
obviously we
cool.
covered Matilda recently and big fans of that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Anyway, there is one more thing though,
Okay.
something I want us to try. I want you, and if you don't have anything to write with or a piece of paper, just put it on your phone. I want you to try to guess what my ranking is going to be later, and then I'm going to try to guess yours. And then after, obviously not going to reveal it beforehand, but after we give it, let's see how close we predicted one another.
All right.
So
I'm gonna say yours is probably a 4.
I see it. We were supposed to reveal afterwards, and you've done. That's why I said write it down. We were going to reveal it afterwards.
Oh, got you. Got you. My bad. My bad. I totally misunderstood the assignment.
I'm probably not the best explainer either, but anyway, yeah. After we've given our rankings, we will reveal our what we guessed ahead of time to see how close we got.
Okay.
Um, all
Okay. Well,
right,
then
so
I guess yours will be a secret.
yeah,
All right. All right. So we're gonna go into the recap now for you guys that are new to this podcast. I'm going to give a recap of this movie based on entirely off of my memory. And Jeff is going to grade me like I was a little schoolboy giving a presentation up in front of the class and grade me from an A being the highest and F being the lowest. For those of you that went to school in America, that's how we grade things. So I guess we're going to get into it. The movie is about time. We start out with Tim. He's given us this short little bit of narration about his life. He's lives in this pretty wealthy, family. His dad's this cool guy who's always there for him. His mom is kind of out there. His sister's cool. His uncle's a little crazy, and they have this New Year's Eve party, and um, you know, he's kind of a dork, Tim is, and he's just kind of like bumbling through the party. He's not really being like the cool guy. And then his dad pulls him aside and it's like, hey, all the men in our family, we have this ability to travel back in time. All you have to do is kind of go into a dark place and clench your fists and think about the time that you want to go to, and then you jump back into that time. And so he tests this theory out and he goes back to the New Year's party and does some things differently, plays his, hand a little bit cooler and changes some things. And then that's when he decides that, he's going to use his time travel powers for love. And
so
he,
quick little fact.
yes.
Or I won't say fact, just an interesting little tidbit. When his dad first had that conversation with him, he kind of threw out the line, you can't use it. You can't go and kill Hitler or Shaq, the Helen of Troy.
Yeah.
Kind of a little funny, but there's a deeper connection there. Bill Nighy played a general in Valkyrie, which was a movie about the assassination attempt on Hitler.
Mhm.
And Brendan Gleeson, the father of Domhnall Gleeson, played the king of Sparta and the
Yeah.
husband of Helen of Troy in the movie Troy.
Oh, nice.
So some direct connections there, that little joke. But
That's I love when they do those little winks and nods.
yeah,
That's always
carry on,
cool.
sir, carry on.
All right, so he decides he's going to use it for love, and this just coincides with Margot Robbie. She has coming to their house to visit for the summer. Um, she's pretty much staying with Tim's younger sister, and he, kind of falls in love with her over this time. And on the last night, he goes in there and into her room and basically kind of confesses his love. And she's like, it would have never worked. Why'd you wait on the last night? And so he decides to travel back in time and play his cards, differently. And he goes in there like after a month and then confesses his love. And he decides that, and she pretty much tells him like, "Hey, try coming on the last night." And that's when he's like, you can't really make somebody just love you no matter what. So he keeps going on, lives his life, and he eventually meets this girl, Mary, who he falls in love with pretty much immediately. And he goes through, several different time travel loops to really to come in contact with her again. He finds out that she's dating somebody, and so he even goes back further in time before they meet, and then he kind of intercepts her, makes her fall in love with him just by doing the right things and being in the right place. And
So that first time they met, that restaurant
yeah,
where the waiters are blind and the diners eat completely in the dark.
uh,
That's actually a an actual restaurant,
that's cool.
and it's actually a restaurant in London. I'm not gonna try to pronounce it, but I assume it's still in operation. But yeah, that's not something just done for the movie, so that would have to be a pretty neat experience.
Huh.
And I actually wish that would have been the final way that they first met and what their relationship kind of kicked off of. I
Right.
guess that was my favorite, I guess, out of the 3 or 4 different times they met each other for the first
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, that one was definitely yeah, I don't know. I did like the last way, but I mean, I guess that's probably because that was the way that they actually ended up meeting, but it's pretty funny.
Well, I guess I like the first one more because it was more genuine.
Oh yeah, it was like the real thing, it was authentic.
Yeah, he didn't have any, like, information on her that he could use to his advantage, so I felt like it was more sweet to me and a little bit more genuine, but,
Well, good. I don't know why I said well good. Um, but yeah, so he finally gets her, they go and they live life and they're all happy and being all cute, and this is pretty much just like a romantic comedy through this part where you just see them being in love and having their happy moments. He proposes to before he proposes, he sees Margot Robbie again. He kind of like plays a few scenarios through there. Um, just kind of like rehashing it and kind of playing with the idea of like, hey, this is my first love. And then he realizes that he's totally in love with Mary, and he goes home and rushes home and proposes to her. And they reveal that they're also pregnant. So they get married and have a baby. And on the baby's first birthday, um, Tim's sister, I can't think of her name right off the bat. Kit
I know
Kat.
that. Yeah,
Kit
they call
Kat.
her Kit Kat.
Yeah, they call her Kit Kat. She is involved in a drunk driving, where she is a drunk driver. She is involved in an accident, and Tim decides that he is going to go back in time and help her before she even meets her boyfriend that causes her to, live the lifestyle that she's kind of gone down. And so when he comes back, he realizes that his son or that his daughter has changed into a boy, and he goes and talks to his dad about this, and his dad's like, like whatever events led up to you having the baby, that's the same sperm is never going to hit it again. So um the chances of that happening, you can't change before the baby. So he goes back and pretty much resets everything so that he can have his daughter back again. And um that worked somehow. I don't really sure. I'm not like how did that work? But whatever. And um so they do that. They have another kid, and then they find out that Tim's father has lung cancer and that he will be dying in a few weeks. And Tim uses this time to, spend as much time with his dad as he can. His father passes away, and then he goes, he's and after his father even passes away, he's still going back in time to like visit time and spend time with his dad. Um, and then Mary decides that she wants another kid, and that's a tough decision for Tim because that pretty much means that he has to give up going back, being able to go back and see his father. Which I'm also like, if you can go back in time and change it once, like why couldn't you just go back and just hang out with your dad and it be non-consequential? But I guess that doesn't really um I don't know. I always get stuck in these like time travel movies. Like I always find a problem with just about every one of them. So that's not really the fault of this movie. um, so
I don't
but
even try. I just don't even try to follow the logic, bud.
I love time travel logic. But yes, this one's definitely a nutty time travel logic. So they um they wind up having the baby. Before Mary goes into labor, he goes back to his dad one time, and they have the moment that you spoke about where they go back in time is like when they were younger, and Bill Nye was a young 40-year-old, and his son was still like 8. So Tim and him are like having this day on the beach, and they have a nice little time, and then Tim goes back, has the baby, and then pretty much talks about how it's he doesn't even go back in time anymore, and he just lives his life every day like it's the same, like he's living it, you know, like he's lived it a million times before. So yeah, it's good little movie. The end. What's my score
Pretty
on
good.
that one?
That's a pretty good recap. I'm gonna give you an A on that one.
All right, sweet,
Um,
sweet. And I actually only watched that one twice. And it was for being over a 2-hour movie. I feel like I did all right.
oh, that
Um,
was over 2 hours.
it was definitely over 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah,
I knew it had to be around 2 because I remember thinking when I was looking at my screen, I was like, man, this isn't your typical like hour and a half like rom com type deal.
yeah,
But I was wondering if it was around 2. So a couple of the Harry Potter Easter eggs that I'd mentioned previously. So when Tim goes back to help with Harry's play, he gets into a conversation with Griffith, who's an actor in the play. Um, well, that actor also played Uncle Vernon in Harry Potter.
mm-hmm, yep,
And he starts with, I'm a friend of Harry's, which is obviously correct for both actors. And it's the only link between their characters in both movie and the movie series.
that's funny.
And then Griffith shouts at Gleason with one of the last comments being, ginger twerp. And I'm not familiar with the Harry Potter series, but
Oh my gosh.
gingerness is a strong characteristic of all the Weasleys. Um, Another one it mentioned was when wedding planning, Mary goes, well, that's a lock for Hagrid, in reference to the Harry Potter character. So a couple little Harry Potter things thrown in there.
Neat. Awesome. I mean, like, I know this, as you're telling me this, but I didn't even catch those as I'm watching it either time. So it's
Yeah, I mean those are pretty well hidden. So I think
Yeah.
yeah, I think even a Harry Potter fanatic would probably
No, I'm
okay.
sure I definitely know some people that would have caught a lot
Well,
more.
yeah, some of them for sure.
Yeah.
Some of them
Um,
for sure.
all right, so Jeff, I already guessed your score. So what did you out of let's see, out of Kate Mosses, how many Kate Mosses do you give this movie?
I was totally expecting you to say Kit Kats, but Kate Moss's is good. All right, I'm going to surprise you a little bit. I think.
All right.
Um, I'm going to give this one 3 Kate Mosses out of 5.
All right.
And I understand why you chose 4 because I'm a big sucker for I wouldn't even call this a romantic comedy. It's probably more of a romantic drama. I mean, there's obviously some comedy mixed in, but I guess the problem I had is there's not been very many movies I've watched. Most movies have peaks and valleys, a lot of, up and down and climaxes and then whatever. This is one of the few movies where I feel like it was just an even kill from start to finish. I kept expecting something like major to happen, like even towards the end when he wanted to go visit his dad one last time.
Mm,
I had this idea in my head that she's going to have the baby while he went back,
mm,
and that was going to throw something off. He was going to come back and that third baby's gone because
yeah.
of him going to see his dad as one last time. Or I thought he was going to be forced to make a decision to like save his sister or save somebody else, but it was going to sacrifice him ever meeting Mary. Or I don't know. I felt
Yeah.
like there was going to be a tough decision like that, which I guess you see a lot in maybe some of these time travel movies. So I guess maybe some kudos for not maybe following maybe the formula that some use, but I felt like the movie never really went anywhere.
Yeah.
All these little things that you thought might even be a climax because I didn't really see his dad passing away as the climax.
Right.
I mean, because he's an older gentleman, he's lived his life. So to me, that was just kind of expected, or wasn't a surprise, or wasn't to me. It didn't really serve as a climax. So, I mean, of course, I enjoyed Rachel McAdams. I thought the acting was good. I enjoyed the story. It kept me interested. I wasn't nodding off, or I wasn't bored. But I don't know. I guess I was just waiting for something to happen in the story to kind of create some kind of blip or something to kind of like, oh, I wasn't seeing that, or
Yeah.
I feel like that never happened. So because of that, I only gave it 3. So I still graded it a little better than average, but 2, I mean, I'm not a fan of any time travel that forces you to choose between Margot Robbie and Rachel McAdams. That's just flat out unfair and cruel. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just mean to force you to choose between them 2. It's like, who would want any part of that? Or some would
Yeah.
say, "Hey,
Well,
I'll take someone giving me those 2 options."
I mean, yeah, that's not a while you think it's a hard decision, it's not a bad one to have. Um, that's definitely I don't know. I think it wasn't such a hard decision for him because I think he could have had both, if he really wanted it. He could have lived in that time with Margot Robbie for a little bit longer and, if he wanted to have his cake and eat it too, so to speak, he probably could have done that for 100 years if he wanted to. But
Well, I think that was also the moment that
yeah,
he
when he
realized that
yeah,
it proved to
exactly.
him that
That's what I'm
Mary.
saying, like,
Yeah,
it wasn't an option for him. I think, like, he was in love. I think that was the thing, was, like, when you're presented with Margot Robbie, you still love your Mary, you know?
yeah.
Um, yeah. I don't know. I did. Yeah, so you gave it 3. Take 3 Kate Mosses. That is kind of shocking. I could definitely would have
I
thought you would have got
I
for
wanted to like this movie. I really did. I was excited just going into it. and it turns out I haven't watched it before. I think I said last week I wasn't sure,
Mhm.
and I'm almost positive I've never seen this one before. So, I mean, I wanted to really, really like it, and I kept wanting to grab onto something that was going to push me over a 2 or a 3. I
Yeah.
just felt like it never happened. I felt like it should have been like maybe a one season show. Uh,
Yeah.
I felt like it was just presenting a story, whereas I feel like when you're squeezing a lot in a 2-hour movie, you got to have a lot of like up and down and something to kind of just almost like a little bit of a roller coaster ride. And I just felt like it was just eh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I see what you're saying, because, like, I guess we'll get into mine right now, and, like, what I thought about it, but, or do you wanna go into, like, what you thought I gave it before? Because I already have my score picked out in my head, you wanna influence it. So what do you
okay,
think? What do you think? How many Kate Mosses do you think I gave this movie?
all right. I'm gonna hold it up for you. Of course, I'll say it since obviously the listeners can't see it. But
Yeah.
or is it gonna be backwards to you?
No, no, actually, that's right. Okay, cool.
2.5.
Yeah,
2.5.
2.5. So, okay, um, so, you know, I'm a big fan of time travel, time manipulation movies. They're actually quite fun, and I love them. So that's always like I don't know. This month is definitely I'm probably gonna give a lot of these films a higher score just based on how much I love the genre, anyways. Um, so, I mean, we haven't gotten our audience choice yet, so, our listener's choice might be something that completely throws that statement out of whack. Who knows? But for the ones we plan on, we have planned so far this month, like, and this will be in the second one, and then, um, we're gonna be watching Palm Springs next week, like, we've seen 3 of them, so 3 out of the 4 ones we're gonna be watching, like, I already know that, like, I'm probably gonna give him a little bit better score based on that just because this is my thing. But, um, I'm not a huge fan of, like, the romantic comedies, that it usually takes something special for me to, like, really get into them. But I will say that with this, like, I don't know, like you said, there's really not like, every time there was conflict, he figured a way out of it. Um, so I don't know, it kinda made it everything a little bit too sappy to some extent, everything worked out, like, I'm with you on that, like, I wish that there was, like, something that, like, where he was like, "Well, I have to pick the lesser," or, like, "I have to give up one thing that really fixes everything," and he kind of did that with his sister, but he was still able to pull her out of that as well, so it was like, there was really no consequence there. I mean, yes, she had years of, you know life lived that was a terrible life, but that was also a life that she chose. It wasn't like he did something to send her down that path either, you know what I'm saying? So she just kind of had to live with her own consequences. And that was like the only thing that he really had to learn was that other people have to live with their consequences sometimes. And that isn't a real lesson that a lot of us have to deal with. So
Yeah. Yeah,
um
he didn't have any really difficult decisions,
yeah,
which a movie like this, you would have thought there's an opportunity to really put him in a tough spot. I never felt like that happened. They had an
right.
opportunity with his sister,
Mhm.
and he does go back and decide to still let her get in the accident to save his own child. But kind of as you alluded to, everything still worked out for his sister,
Yeah.
and she still ended up with the guy that she was with the first time, I guess, when he changed it to where she did get in the accident. So
Yeah.
it's
He just
like,
had yeah. He
like you
just had to,
said,
like, deal with it, yeah,
I mean,
from
it seemed
there
like there
on.
there was never any tough decisions or any major consequences, and
Right, and maybe
yeah,
if, like, the sister had died, in the accident, and he had to, like, decide, like, "Oh, do I actually, like, let my sister die, or do I, go back and, like,
yeah.
lose my daughter that I had for a year that I gained that with?"
Or even
Um,
if like the sister would have never pulled herself out of that funk or out of that bad relationship or out of her addiction,
yeah,
and she had to live that life, from then on, just something that, but
yeah. Um So yeah, I do wish that's like honestly like the main thing that I had a problem with this film was that I just was like, oh, there was never really enough like intense moments, and you know, I'm not really sure like what this film was trying to be because I feel like like you kind of said the same thing, like it's got time travel, it's also it's like a little bit of a science fiction, and then it's also got like the fantasy element of it as well, and then it's romantic, it's got a little bit of comedy, it's a little bit of drama, so it's like it never really has like a thing that it's kind of like sticking with, so it kind of does feel like it's all over the place at some points. But with that being said, I did enjoy a lot of those elements still. And I'm also like a big sucker for like movies where dads and sons like have a relationship, like where it's like even if theirs wasn't even a bad relationship, it was a good one. Like I don't know, movies between fathers and sons just always get me, and I don't know I don't know why. I have a great relationship with my dad, but it's I don't know. They always get me.
Yeah, I mean,
So
yeah, male relationships definitely hit different just because, you
yeah,
know, guys aren't good expressing their feelings and
but see, I
uh
feel like I am, and so I don't know.
well,
It's
I'm just saying since you don't see it that much
yeah,
when they do portray it on the screen, it just
it's refreshing, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, I think it just hits different than other types of relationships.
Yeah. And I even enjoyed the romantic part of it. And that's probably a lot to do with Rachel McAdams and the guy that I can't like Gleason, the guy that played Tim. Their chemistry was just kind of great, you know. Um, they were just fun to watch. So I don't know. It was fun. I enjoyed this movie. So I am going to kind of surprise you. I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Okay.
I definitely took off the point and a half because I feel like they could have trimmed some of the stuff out of it and definitely raised the stakes on a few parts of the movie. Yeah, it really wasn't. There was never even like a real moment in the. I guess if you were going like the romantic angle of it, there was really not even a point where he was really in fear of losing Mary. You know what I'm saying? Like he always knew that he was going to figure it out. It was just like, how's he going to figure this out? Never is he going to figure this out. We're going to see how he was going to do it. So yeah. Uh,
So we each we were each off by a full point guessing.
yeah, and
you, you you overrated by a full point. I underrated you by a full point.
yeah.
But which I forgot. I made the mistake of forgetting that you picked the whole time travel thing. I did not take into account that would probably buy you some extra points, it being about time travel.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's definitely one of my favorite just genres in general. And like I was talking about last week, like I watched that Infinity thing like another like I've watched it like twice since then. And even though it's not really anything to do with time travel, it also kind of is at the same time. But yeah, I love all that kind of stuff. And time travel is just always fun. Uh because it's I don't know, time is relative and it's interesting. It's just an interesting thought. I would love to think about it. Um
Now, I will say this though, even though and it's probably why I still gave it a 3 because even though, I'm complaining about like nothing major happening, it's like you kept thinking it was right around the corner or it was the next scene that something major was going to happen. Had something major did happen, like if they would have killed off Mary or he never meets her and that's how the movie ended, I would have been ticked off. I can't stand movies where and even if it's considered brilliant, you know, for a director to do that kind of twist, when you take me on a ride, a 2-hour ride, and like you just like kill off like the main character or you like just undo the main relationship.
mhm.
uh, I probably would have dropped it to a star had they had done even though I felt like it would have made it more interesting. uh maybe if they had done it like midway through the movie and then it still kind of has somewhat of a happy ending towards the end. But I was kind of afraid that was the way it was going to end. I was prepared for that type of ending where, I was thinking that was the direction it was going. Like he was wanting to go see his dad one last time,
Mhm.
and then something happens and he just threw everything off, or maybe Mary had a complicated delivery and it just really, really screwed his life up. That's kind of what I was expecting to happen. Now, that would have made me mad, but so in some ways, them playing safe is what allowed me to still give it 3.
Uh,
But
all right, I haven't done this in a while, but I'm gonna make this maybe. This is my pitch to make this maybe more interesting. You ready? In the last 15 minutes, um, last 15 minutes, or well, not even maybe the last 15 minutes, last 5 minutes of the movie, we see that Mary has, um, she's kind of just gotten bored with her life because it's so perfect that she never has to, like, it's just kind of got, she's kind of gotten bored with life. Tim's all, everything's just always successful. There's never any flaws because Tim's always, doing everything right, yada, yada, yada. And we see her go into the closet and clench her fists and go back to before her and Tim meet. And she just kind of avoids him because she's had the ability to do the same thing the whole time. Like, that would be interesting. Fixed it right there.
there's a lot of angles that, I mean, especially since they showed that he was able to take his sister back.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of options they had there that they could have went with.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I definitely think like this movie would have been better served, like you said, as like a maybe like a 10 episode Netflix, series. Just kind of like gone in and explored a little bit more of like what they could have done with that because it was definitely more fun than they did with it. I think. I guess like thinking about it is always more fun too. So that's probably why it gives me a lot more. I give it a lot more credit on these, especially if they give it a half decent thought and it's kind of fun. Love time manipulation. So Jeff, who is your dude or dud of the week?
All right. I did a dud last week, and I don't know. I just can't find an Emmy on the month of Valentine's to do. That's tough to do 2 duds in a row. Wow, talk about a tongue twister. I can't do 2. This is so difficult. I cannot do 2 duds in a row. Okay, wow. I got a feeling that's going to be a soundbite.
Oh,
All right, my dude is going to be Tim. Any dude that could be faced with the temptation of Margot Robbie, and don't get me wrong, Rachel McAdams is no slouch herself, and to still realize at that moment, because you think about it, he can have his night with Charlotte and then go right back to the previous spot, almost like it never happened, and be selfish and enjoy his one night with Charlotte, his first love, as he says a few times throughout the movie. There's a lot of ways he could have taken advantage of that situation, and the
yeah.
man chose not to. Not only did he choose not to, he's like, I'm running back to my other woman and proposing right now while she's asleep in the bed. He even worked out a live band to play, which his wife thought was just the radio turned on in the background.
That's pretty funny.
But so kudos to my man Tim in that situation. So he showed a lot of kahunas in that situation. So what about you?
I'm gonna also do it. I'm also gonna do a dude this week. I'm gonna give it to Tim's dad. Um, I don't know. I feel like he was just a really good dad, and he had a really good. He always had really good advice for Tim. And whether or not he, he had to do those conversations 100 times to get it right. At least he was the kind of person that took the time to make sure he got it right, and um definitely a good dad. And he was also funny, and I like Bill Nye. So um yeah, Tim's dad is my dude of the week.
Now I will say this: I love any movie, show, or whatever that has something that really like challenges me or like speaks to me on a deeper level. And there was one there towards the latter part of the movie where he was telling how his dad gave him, I can't remember if it was two or three pieces of advice.
Yeah.
And this might have been the first one. I can't remember for sure, but where he told him to actually live each day twice,
Yeah.
go through it, and then do it again, but do everything the same, but just with the understanding.
Yeah.
And man, to me, that really spoke to me how, I don't know, it really teaches, like, if you really went and approach each day with that mindset, pretending like this is actually your second time through and not let all, you know, not sweat the small stuff, I guess is what they would say, but truly like cherish each moment you're going through and how
Yeah.
you can even cherish moments that you think, weren't enjoyable or weren't meant to be cherished. So yeah, that actually spoke to me pretty, and I was like, that to me that was pretty powerful. Um, so I did enjoy, that part of the movie, and I always enjoy it when I feel like, something like that reaches me in that way. So I thought that was pretty big. Not enough to give for me to give it 3.5, but it was close.
I mean,
If we if we were doing 0.25s, I probably would have gave it a 3.25. But
well, I mean, that is the average, so close enough.
there you go.
All right. Well, Jeff, next week we are going to be doing our original. We're going to be doing Palm Springs. It is on Hulu. So check that out and watch that with us next week. Jeff, do you have anything else before we get out of here this week? Oh wait, we gotta do our question. I forgot about the question. Yeah, let's get into that.
Oh, glad you mentioned. I almost forgot it. All right, so off-topic question of the week. Another one of those get to know you type things. So the big debate: cats or dogs, and why?
I'm like this one's a hard question because I just love animals. But I would probably say a dog person. Um, I don't know. I enjoy cats, but I don't know, man. It's the litter box that really gets me, honestly. Um, yeah, it's the litter box. It always comes down to the litter box every time, every time, and that's really like it, you know. That's where I'm just like it's the litter box. It's always the litter box, and I know that when you live in the city, that you're going to have to pick up your dog's stuff, but it's just one thing that you have to pick up instead of like constantly having to do the scooping of the peeing and the clumping and the poop and the I mean, I do love cats and I don't I don't mind doing it, but I don't know, it's just given the choice, it's just dogs are just I don't know, just a dog. I've also grew up around dogs. I didn't have very many cats growing up, so that also has a lot to do with it too. But definitely, I would say I'm I love both, but I definitely lean more towards dogs. What about you?
I can't say I relate to the whole. My mind just went blank. What is the cat litter?
Yeah,
Whatever.
litter box.
Litter box. I can't say I relate to that because I only recall us having a cat very briefly when I was a kid. And I don't even know if we had it long enough where we even used the litter box because I don't think it was even allowed inside or something like that. I don't know. So, but I'm definitely 100% dog. Um, and maybe I'm biased because dogs is the one pet I've always had or been used to. Even now we've always had a dog. Even my 23 years of marriage, almost the entire time. But I guess the way I look at it is, to me, pets is, at least the way I see it, is mostly about companionship. And I don't think there's another animal that provides better companionship than a dog. I don't think anybody can change my mind on that. I mean, it's like you don't take a cat for a walk. I mean, the cat's not going to go to the park with you generally and hang out or throw the frisbee or play fetch or to me, there's just so much more that a dog brings to the table when it comes to companionship. Now, if you're a homebody, yeah, I mean, I can see where it's all about just you just hanging out in your house. But even then, just my experience has been, cats were usually a lot of fun in the kitten stage when they're real playful. But then after that, it's like you got a number of cats. They just find a place to hide in the house, and that's just where they hang out. So for me, it's definitely 100% dogs. Nothing against cats. I mean, when I'm driving,
Now, in all fairness, I have known some lazy dogs that don't do anything but lay around the house.
well, I mean that's true too. But
I think that's on a pet by pet basis. Uh,
as a whole, you would have to agree when it comes to companionship. There's not much.
I mean, companionship, yes and no, but I mean, like I said, I've also seen cats, and I know cats that like when you walk in the door, they like hop up, they come to your feet, they're happy to see you, they greet you at the door, they meow at you and talk to you just like a dog would. They follow you around when you sit down, they jump up in your lap, and they like, you know, they're excited to see you, and they want to be around you, and they'll cuddle with you all day, and they'll play, and they're even when they're grown. I know plenty of cats that play, well into their years. But
But yeah, everything
yeah,
you mentioned is inside the house, and that was one of the points I was making. Is I guess the ceiling for dogs is much higher because there's a whole level of companionship outside the house. I mean, you don't see people calling restaurants to ask if they're cat friendly because
yeah,
people aren't taking their cat so they can hang out at a bar or they're not generally riding in the car with them. To me, dogs just it's the next level to where
yeah.
you
But I think the same people that probably, I mean, that like, I don't know, like for me, I don't know, maybe we're talking way too much about cats versus dogs here, but to me, and I love how I'm like taking like the cat stance because I feel like I need to in this point, but um,
that was my goal was to make this a little controversial for you.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of, even though you have to pick one or the other, you're just so pro dog that's kind of making you have to go pro cat here, for my homies because giving them a bad name, I feel like. Um, but I mean, like that's kind of like what one of the great things about cats though as well is that they are self-sufficient to where you can go out and you can have like a life and be like, okay, well, as long as I just come back to feed my cat, once a day and like scoop out the litter box, we're good. And then you can go and do your own thing where you don't feel guilty about leaving your cat home alone. Um, but if you have a dog, yeah, you have to be at home or take it everywhere. And it pretty much is like having a child for 16 to 17 years, And I don't know. I think that that's a lot of with the companionship, you get a lot more responsibility. And uh I think a cat is great for people that, you know, like people in my situation. And I know you say like, oh, like maybe if you're a homebody, that's great for the dog or for a cat, but I think it's the opposite, I think if you're a homebody, it's great to have a dog because you're always there with the dog and you're always taking care of the dog. You're there for the dog. You can play with the dog. Um, I mean, yeah, you can take a dog places, but how many people are always taking their dog everywhere they go? Like you cannot take your dog everywhere you go. So therefore, your poor buddy that's wanting just to spend time with you, he's just sitting there all by himself all day, just waiting on you, just in his own little purgatory until you walk back in the door. So now think about that when you're out living your life.
My conscience is clean.
How pro dog are you? How pro dog are you, Joe?
To the mat. It's funny you brought up that point because when you mentioned the litter box, I was going to give a little bit of props to cats and mention they are lower maintenance because I've heard people that's like cat sitting or dog sitting. If they're cat sitting, it's like, Oh yeah, I just swing by like once every couple of days.
I mean, that is me. I mean, I'll have to do it. Yeah, when there's cats involved, I only have to take care of them once a day. But
Yeah. So yeah, they're definitely lower maintenance. But like I said, for me, and everybody values different things differently. But to me, I put companionship at the very top as far as when I'm looking at a pet.
yeah,
And to me, dogs offer a higher level. Like you said, it definitely comes with more responsibility and more work. Because Steph and I've even talked about how when dog we got now is probably 12, 13 years old, and when he passes on, which obviously is inevitable in the next 2, 3, 4 years, do we want to get another one? Because we like to travel, and which you're in the dog sitting business. I mean, it's not cheap, and you have to work out arrangements, for somebody, because we don't like just taking them to a kennel or having them boarded. So it would be nice not to have that responsibility when we want to just go out of town or vacation or whatnot, and not as big of a concern when you have a cat, just because there's not as much involved in taking care of them. But so I'll give them props in that area. But
yep. All right.
Dog still rule though.
So next week we will be watching Palm Springs on Hulu, starring Andy Samberg. Great movie. I'm excited. I say great movie, but I'm not trying to persuade anybody's judgment here. But I just like Andy Samberg, so I'm excited to watch this one. I have seen it. It's been a while. I watched it when it first came out, but I haven't really watched it since. So I'm excited to get back into this one. I think it's been like 2 years, so it'll be fun.
I'm gonna need your Hulu login, by the way.
All right.
Oh wait, can we say that out loud?
Speaking of which, I would like to talk about how Netflix is not cool, man, about sharing passwords. Like, they're cracking down on that, and I'm not okay with that.
Man, I
Even
mean,
though I pay for the account, it's like that sucks.
I know there's a lot of fuss about that, but man, I don't have a problem with that. It makes sense to me. I mean, they're a business and they are losing a ton of money. I mean, it's like, yeah, we enjoyed the days of Napster, or when we were able to illegally copy music and movies and stuff. And I feel like we're okay now that you can't really do that to an extent, because we
Oh,
realize
you can still do
that,
it.
I mean, it's not nearly as acceptable or easily done. Whereas
Oh,
like back when it was Napster, it was just everybody did, and it was just accepted, and they just couldn't or didn't do anything about it. But so yeah, I mean, I don't personally have a problem with it.
It's still quite easily done. I'm gonna plead a fifth on everything about that, but it's still quite easily done. And I mean, even the things that are streaming are quite easily accessible. But anyways, I don't know. I have a thing. I don't know. I have mixed emotions about it, because like, there's some exceptions, I feel like, that to the rule, and I know that they're gonna give out passcodes or whatever that work for like 7 days, but people go on business trips for longer than 7 days, and you know what I mean? Like, they're gonna have to pay for two separate accounts because they go out of town for longer than 7 days at a time.
Yeah,
Like, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy to me that, like, and like, as somebody that has been, involved, like I've been separated from like family and stuff, that, like, that's, like, it's like, even though we don't live in the same house, like, I don't know. It's just kind of like it doesn't really feel like they're losing as much money as they're saying. And they're probably gonna I feel like they're gonna wind up losing more money in the long run from people that are just gonna be like, well, screw it. But I don't know. We'll see.
yeah, it'll be interesting, and I'm not sure how their policy is laid out or is going to be laid out. And I'm not saying I won't have a problem with any of it. I'm just saying I don't have a problem with the scenarios with them not liking just an average Joe Blow giving out his login to 20, 30 different family and friends. Now, that is one concern of mine, is I don't want to be charged extra to have the ability to, whether if I'm at a different location other than my house, whether it's work, vacation,
Well, that's the
business
thing. That's
trip.
the thing is like, yeah, every time you're gonna have to log into an account like from that's different, I'm pretty sure you're gonna have to like have some code that allows you to do it for only like 7 days at a time. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. I'm not exactly sure how it's gonna work, but hopefully they loosen up on it to some extent because like maybe only allow like two or three. I don't know. Like two or three locations would make sense. Because I mean, even if you have it, because as far as I know, like you're tracking things from the only way that they would really be able to do it is to track it from your IP. And if you're watching Netflix on your phone, your IP is going to change every time you connect to a different Wi-Fi. So like, how is
Yeah.
that gonna, you know what I mean? Like, are they gonna log me out of Netflix every time I like go over to a relative's house and connect to their Wi-Fi or a friend's house and connect to their Wi-Fi and watch something on my phone from Netflix? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And good and well that all the other streaming platforms are paying close attention.
All right, and they're gonna watch, and
Because if it blows up in Netflix, is because all of them want to do that.
oh yeah, because it's
Because all of them know they're losing a lot of money. But I think, like what you mentioned, they're all scared to say something or do something about it for fear of backlash. So I think they're all eagerly watching what's going to happen with Netflix. Does it blow up in their face? I don't really think it will. I mean, I think it'll get a lot of attention at the beginning, but I think it'll kind of blow over. And I think gradually you'll see other streaming platforms kind of follow suit and do something similar. But I will say they need to tread carefully on how they do this, because to me it is important, especially for those that aren't just giving it away to 20, 30 friends and family just so
mhm,
you've got basically 30 households getting all the streaming they want off of one paying account. I get
yeah,
that. So they do need to be careful, because I too like the right to be able to watch it on multiple different devices, different locations. And
yeah,
yeah, I'll be one of those that does get a little mad if I got to pay extra for that.
yeah.
So
And I mean, I don't know, like as much as I enjoy having the option, I've had Netflix for years and years. The way I feel about it is just like, I mean, Netflix is great and everything, but there's maybe like 5 shows that I actually, like, enjoy, and everything else is, like, hit or miss or I can find somewhere else, you know? So, if it's not Stranger Things or Cobra Kai or You or, like, one of those shows that I'm, you know, wanting to watch every season of, then, you know, what's the point? As far as I'm concerned, I can just not have Netflix until those shows come up, and then I can pay for it for a month, watch it, and then unsubscribe. Um, but yeah, I mean,
yeah,
this podcast is probably going to prevent me from being able to do that. So I'm sitting here fussing about it while we're literally like got a podcast covering it. But I mean, maybe our we'll pick some less Netflix films in the future as a boycott.
but
Uh,
I would agree. I don't think Netflix is in bad of a situation as they're egging on, because I mean, just the law of probability and math in general, when a company is fairly new, which I know Netflix has been around a while, but they were the first big name kind of doing the whole streaming thing. So obviously growth at first is going to be enormous, because you've
mhm.
got the entire population that's now, signing up for your service. Well,
Yeah,
obviously over time, there's a lot less people that you're pulling from in the pool. So your growth is going to slow down. At the same time, streaming is taking off. So you've got a lot of other competitors as well.
yeah,
So even if you're doing really well, your growth is just naturally going, you're never going to match the growth that you had in the first 5, 10 years.
right.
That's just math. So I still think Netflix is perfectly fine. I think they're still, one of the top dogs. Now they do need to be careful, because what well, I think they're fine probably with people 25 and older. You got to worry about the next generation coming up. Are they
Mhm.
going to be signing up for Netflix if they ever get off their parents' account or whatever? But Or will Netflix, be fearful of being, I guess, no longer relevant, or not the top man in the game, or
Yeah.
overtaken by everybody else? So they do need to be careful.
I mean, how many different forms of like entertainment have we seen rise and fall in our lifetime, you know? I mean, I was born in the middle of like the cable days, but I mean, you've seen the rise and fall of cable television, you know? Um, I've seen the rise and fall of like DirecTV and Dish Network. I've seen the rise and fall of um
Blockbuster
Blue.
Video.
Well, Blockbuster was a little bit before my time, but you know, I've seen the rise and fall of DVDs. I've seen the rise and fall of Blu-rays. Um, yeah, so I mean, it's 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 interesting. Um, I've seen the rise and fall of MP3 players, you know, portable CD players, all of the above. But yeah, uh, they could very well, you know, screw themselves out of a deal, you know, and they could circle the drain. I mean, especially when you have, like you said, all these other ones that are doing great. And you know, like I don't know, like Netflix isn't even usually the one that I go to first anymore. It used to always be the first one I would check, and if there wasn't anything good on Netflix, like see what else is on the other ones. But now it's like, let's see what's on HBO Max first, because they usually have, you know, the good movies or, you know, some of my favorite shows. But um yeah, I don't know. Like you said, they've got to be careful. So yeah. Jeff, you got anything else? That was a really unexpected conversation there at the end. Jeff, you got anything else before we get out of here?
I got a feeling 75% of our podcast is going to be Netflix and cats and dogs.
Right.
But you can edit this out, because this is just something that made me think of when you were talking about Walkmans and stuff. But did you see the TikTok where it was a young girl, probably like 20, 21, and she was a flight attendant? And she's very animated and charismatic. She's great. She's just telling you a story of, you know, the passengers are off the plane. She's doing her normal checks, and then she comes across something, and she said, "I had to call, you know, the bomb people, because you know it's like she wouldn't even say the word."
Yeah.
So the first gentleman comes on, and he looks at the device, and she says, "You know, I've never seen this device. It's making some kind of noise," and then I think before even the first guy comes on, she even grabs one of the other flight attendants who's about the same age as her, and she's freaking out too. So the first guy shows up, and he's just kind of chuckling a little bit, and they're kind of offended, and he's not taking it that serious. And he calls another guy over, and I mean, they just start laughing and just chuckling, and they're like, "Miss, that's a CD Walkman." And she was convinced it was a bomb up on that plane.
That's hilarious.
Like, I don't imagine that age has seen very many Walkmans at all.
You would think that she would have picked it up somewhere, just like in film or something. I don't know. That's crazy.
Well, it is TikTok, because I mean, it could have been completely made up, and she was just doing it. Which 100%.
100%. You're probably right. It's probably
she got a ton of views, so it worked.
Of course. All right. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for doing this with me this week, and thank you, listeners, so much. If you would like to support the podcast, you can do so by giving us a one-time rating review wherever you listen to us. That really does help these guys out. If you're not subscribed, make sure you do that as well. That's how you can get episodes every week and listen to us and follow us as well. You can also help us out by recommending us to friends, family, or anybody, some random guy on the street, your Starbucks barista, whoever. If you'd like to give us some money, you can also do that. We'll always take money. If you'd like to follow us or reach out to us, you can do so by checking us out in our show notes. That's where we have our links to our socials and our email. If you'd like to stay involved in conversation, you can be a member of our Facebook group. There is a link to that also in the show notes. Just request to join in there, and one of us will definitely accept you. Guys, thanks again, and remember, you can't make someone love you just by time travel. So,
dogs rule.